I guess we're recording. Um, hey kids. I'm Chauncey. I'm Matt's roommate. I just wanted to give you, like a little spiritual reading over here. So, while Matt's away, I just thought I'd start the class for you guys. So, hope you did the reading for last week. Let's just start with a little meditation, if we will. If you could bow your heads, please. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for battle, my fingers for war. And then Captain America said, I don't need my fingers because I have an awesome shield. And he punched Iron Man in the face. Look at this, man. Look at that. That's so cool.
What the heck are you doing?
What? I'm just.
Dude,
doing
you're in my
some-
stuff.
Um,
This is my sanctuary where I come and I prepare my students to learn about God. And now you're here. What is this? Isn't
it's scripture.
this is Mitchell's Comics.
And?
Okay, and you're eating a cinnamon roll on camera?
Well, yeah.
Dude, be professional.
What?
Eat an egg or something, like something more
What's wrong?
sophisticated.
I don't understand what's wrong
Okay,
with
all
this.
right. I need to get to
But-
class. All right, you need to.
Can I teach your kids still?
No, you need to. Come on, dude. Yeah, this is pretty good actually. So, to start, in the prophetic books, you have four major prophets. All right, and these are called major prophets mainly because they're just longer. It doesn't necessarily mean that the other prophets are insignificant, but the four major prophets are often longer, include a great deal of prophecies and history about the Israelites, especially during the Babylonian exile. And so those four major prophets are Isaiah, Daniel, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. Then there's 12 minor prophets, and those are Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, that's a U right there, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. And then finally, there's two more books that we put in with the prophetic books, and those are Baruch and Lamentations. Lamentations, as it sounds, is a very sad book full of lamenting and wailing to the Lord. It's kind of fun. So the prophets in general were what we call intermediaries. Let me scroll this up here. They were intermediaries between God and the people, right? And they received messages from God, often in visions, dreams, or mystical experiences. And we see many examples of that throughout the prophets. And then they communicated to the people through speech, sermons, writings, and symbolic actions. So in that way, they're kind of similar to priests, actually, in the way that they communicate with the people. They're in front of the people. They are preaching, and they're doing many ritualistic things to try to call the people back to God. The one I want to focus in on real quick is speech. This is huge, actually, throughout the entire Bible. But the prophetic books kind of put into perspective this, what we call an oral culture, meaning a culture and heritage passed down through word of mouth, as opposed to our culture. Most of our culture here in the United States and throughout Western civilization is written down. But in ancient times, before they had books and paper and printers and printing presses and things like that, news and stories and culture was passed down by word of mouth. Um, and that's how, honestly, most of, especially the prophetic books and the messages within the prophetic books, would have been conveyed, is by speeches. And people literally would have memorized these speeches. And the prophets use poetry, and they use maybe rhyming schemes or like repetition and certain key words to really ingrain that message into people's heads, which seems crazy to us because we're so used to just being able to look things up on Google or to look things up in a book. But if you think to a time when that wouldn't have been the case, memories would have been much better, much sharper. And so that's how these prophetic messages would have would have been passed down, which is pretty cool. Prophets were directly called by God, and we actually get an example of that in the book of Isaiah, chapter 6. Isaiah says, "Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send? Who will go for us?' Isaiah responds, 'Here I am,' I said, 'send me.'" And then the Lord tells him what to do. But there's a very direct call with these prophets by God. The prophetic calling is not hereditary, meaning it's not passed down from like father to son. And there's also both male and female prophets, and we actually see a couple examples of female prophets. If you look all the way back to Deborah, the judge, she was a female prophet, and even you look at Miriam, the sister of Moses, all the way back in Exodus. She had certain aspects of prophetic character and leadership amongst the Israelite people. Furthermore, prophets are not fortune tellers. They're not just these people who sit in a crystal ball and tell the future. They do prophesy certain things that point to things that may happen in the future. And there's plenty of examples of that, and you'll see that actually in your reading assigned this week. But prophets often focus on current events and moral behavior. They're very harsh sometimes to the Israelite people, mainly because the Israelite people are doing so many bad things. And so they pass very severe judgment, but they have this radical commitment to Israel's history and traditions. They're very faithful to the Lord. They're very faithful to the traditions of the Israelite people. And they don't just pass judgment, they also share good news and encouragement, which you'll also see in your readings this week in the book of Isaiah. And finally, because of this kind of emphasis on moral behavior, but also good news and encouragement, and oftentimes huge typology and kind of futuristic prophecy towards Christ, the prophetic texts were often used to describe Christ and the church in the early church. So early church members would have looked to the prophets and really used a lot of the themes in the prophetic writings to help them along beginning in the early church. So that is a broad overview of the prophetic texts. And so as you read this week, pay attention to some of those themes and things that I've pointed out here.